Hi everyone, welcome to Talk About Life on YouTube, podcast, Instagram, and Facebook now. I'd like to welcome my very special guest here from the US, Elliot, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself and his life story. And today's topic is my comeback story. He's going to share with us the story about his parents. And you know that I love people to share about stories about real people, real lives, the pains, the gains, the ups and the downs, the challenges, the successes, things that really mark the milestones of their lives. And we're going to hear a little bit of Elliot's family story, and including himself in the next 40 minutes or so. And of course, it's just not sufficient to tell a good story. You know, we don't give justice to a life in a few minutes. And I would like all the listeners and all the viewers know that, you know, whatever goes out to every word, a huge 500-page story could be written, almost like an encyclopedia. It's never going to end. But I think it's always a good endeavor for us, Elliot and myself now, to start an endeavor of documenting our lives for perpetuity in the digital world, because it's going to go on forever. And his family and his children is going to watch and listen, and then they're going to like promote this among their families. You know, it's just a start of an endeavor, right? And then they're going to do more of these YouTube videos and document their lives. I hope this will be a start of a long thing that, you know, people can just do it. You know, I would always think that, you know, my grandparents have passed on, and I don't know a lot of them. I've never met my grandparents. I should say my granddads, my grandfathers on both sides, like my dad's side and my mom's side. I've never met them before, and I've never even seen their pictures.
Oh,
And for them to have like lived a legacy through us now, I mean, it's a pity that we don't even know them or have any of their pictures. But I do know that their stories must have been deep, and it has gone and shut down in the graves and in ashes and you know, dust underground, 9 feet under. But you know, if we could do a better job now with technology, which we should all start documenting our lives. Don't you think, Elliot? Introduce yourselves to the world here and tell us about you.
be on your podcast, so Vicky, I'm just so feel so blessed because it goes back to what I like to preach to as well. Everybody has a story, right? Everybody has a story to share, and everybody's story should be heard. And I just love what you're doing, and you're have giving people the opportunity to document this, like you said. And it doesn't have to be written anymore, and it could be in this video format. It could be across the video like this, and you and I
Yeah,
are across.
it could just even be a WhatsApp voice
Yeah.
message.
And you and I are like halfway across the world from each other. Like, how amazing is that? That our
Yeah, yeah,
technology nowadays is
yeah,
so advanced.
yeah,
Well, I just want to say, you know, I'm honored to be on the show with you. And I am Elliott Vang. I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the U.S. Right, so
yeah.
it's in the U.S. For me, and I I am Hmong, so just spell Hmong, and my parents are born in Laos, and you know, had 9 kids, so it's just a big family, right? But not kind of typical for that during that time. Like nowadays, I wouldn't have 9 kids myself, right? That just like blows my mind to be able to take care of 9 kids.
Yeah, and I'd like to welcome you for coming to Singapore virtually now. You're transporting
Yeah.
yourself spiritually and virtually to Singapore. And for the viewers and the listeners who are new to this part of the world, you know, Singapore, it's a beautiful city-state. We've built the country from scratch. And you know, and just like me telling Elliot, you know, this is what people should be doing. You know, just start writing down virtually, writing in inverted commas,
Yeah.
documenting your life story. And I love the stories of people. You know, especially like, you know, I hear when you write to me, which you're going to share a little bit in the next 40 minutes or so with the listeners and the viewers about your family. You know, this is something that I think it can be emotionally, it could be deep, but you're just going to talk about it. But there's so much that packs into a life.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that goes on to every minute and every second of a life. The depth and the breadth, the height, everything. So, and I think your parents and your family would be proud of you to start this journey about talking about their lives and sharing it with the rest of the world. And I'm sure that you will be rewarded richly, by God for showing your kind of appreciation for what they have gone through. And I think this is something that this millennium, us, especially in this pandemic, I think we give thanks to life, uh, don't we, Elliot?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Tell us about your motivation in wanting to do this, and then you can start telling your story about where you want to start. The floor is
Well, it
yours.
goes back to what you mentioned, and then what I talked a little bit about. Everybody has a story, and everybody has a perspective, and that needs to be shared, right? And sometimes people put themselves down or say, "Oh, my story is not worthy of
Yeah.
being told. My story
Exactly.
is not some glamorous Hollywood made
Oh, I'm just
movie."
an ordinary person.
Yes, exactly, right. But it's like, no,
But we are all
you
ordinary person, right?
yes, we all started somewhere, and you have
Yeah.
everybody has such a great story, great
Yeah.
perspective to be
Yeah.
told.
Yeah.
There's 7.8, 7.9 billion people in this world, and there's only one of you, right? There's only one of us.
Yeah.
And everybody has a different perspective, and that
Yeah.
needs to be told, and that needs to be put out there.
Yeah.
And everybody's story should be heard. So I'm glad that you're offering this platform for that opportunity.
Yeah. And just a bit, listeners and viewers, the way I see it is that you are very loving, you're a very loving, husband, and you are a certified high performance coach, and you help to guide people to discover new beliefs and habits so that they can show up to their truest self. And I love the word about showing up. A lot of people don't show up, and a lot
Yeah.
of people do not choose themselves, which is quite sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the way that you talked about your dad. Maybe we can start from there. You told me that your dad came to the U.S. Um, from a very difficult place where you come from, in a war zone. And people like us in your era and my era, and in this modern world, to except for the Iraq war and some of these wars being fought
Mm-hmm.
some places, it's really hard for us to envision and imagine that a family, or now we're talking
Yeah.
about your dad being in
Yeah.
that place at that time, in that
Yeah.
era. We're talking about an era that is like long gone. It was history. It's so hard for us to imagine. So maybe you would like to tell us about your dad, and what are these nuggets of memories. And I believe these are stories being told to you by someone in your family. You
Yes.
wouldn't have a film, right? And neither would you have a lot of photos, diaries. So it must have been told to you, story, word by word, by someone. Tell us these nuggets of memories that you have about your dad, and the times that he was then.
Yeah, right. So, my dad passed away now when I was younger, and on the 25th anniversary of his passing, my siblings and I said, "Hey, we don't know much about our dad, or we've only
Mm.
heard from stories, and let's go reach out to our aunts, our
Yeah,
uncles, our grandmas, and record them like what you said, right? Record them on video of sharing their explicit stories of my dad that they shared and experienced with him." So that was a great project that we did.
wow.
Going back, my parents escaped a war-torn country in 1978 and came to the U.S. And my dad was the breadwinner. My dad was the one who was working. My mom was a homemaker. And here, my dad came to the U.S. And yes, the U.S. is land of opportunities and freedom. And my dad somehow, some way, crowdfunded and was able to gather enough funds to start his own business.
So
Right.
okay, fast forward.
Sure.
I'm going to you to rewind a little bit slower. I mean, it must have been so difficult for them to make that journey, and we must not forget the difficulties that they have gone through. I mean, for them to leave a war-torn place, and it must have been so difficult for them to like really just want to pull themselves out and go through a very difficult journey, and then in search of hope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we must not forget that that must have been a difficult time. Have you heard anything about that phase that they kind
Yeah,
of
very
made
much
it?
so. Because as that during that era, during that time, people would have little kids, and little kids, right, toddlers, infants, wouldn't know when to be quiet and be loud. And I would hear stories about those kids being fed opium, those kids being fed alcohol so that they could sleep and be quiet. But a good number of them died from it because it wasn't known how much or what the amount to give to those little ones just so they could be quiet. And it was like people that moms or parents that didn't want to give those were excluded from the group and say, hey, you can't be with us. And because your child's gonna be too loud, your child's gonna give us away. We're trying to escape here. We're trying to be quiet. We're trying to be on the down low. But you can't, either you give this to your child so they be quiet, or you be on your own. And those are the stories I heard, and it just broke my heart. Like, oh my gosh, how do you, as a parent, make that decision? Um, this is not good for them. This may possibly kill them and lead to death. But you're stuck. Like, do I give it? Do I not give it? I want to be part of the group. I can't go on my own. I can't navigate these jungles and this forest by myself. Right. So those are the kind of stories I heard. I was like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't even know what to do in that situation myself.
Wow. So I'm not going to go into too deep because it can be really emotional. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually they made it out of the country.
Correct.
Then they landed in a safe zone,
Mm-hmm.
away from the war, and it must have been difficult. And even for one of my series here about migration and integration, even I'm just really telling you, Elliot, even in these times, migrating and integrating is a huge thing and it's difficult for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. Yeah, but can you imagine in those times and that your dad and your mom brought you and your siblings, and I should say salute, is like they are the heroes, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, just going to a new country, new setting, new language, nothing about, you've only heard bits and pieces about that country, right? Just imagine us during this time. Technology is so advanced. We have the capabilities of Google Translate, right? How hard will it even be for us if we were put into a whole different environment with a new language,
Without a
different,
Google map.
yeah, how stuck we would be, right? So
Yeah,
just imagine, I was like, I can't even fathom what they
yeah.
were going through, their struggle. It's like they were put in a new system, and there was struggles and challenges there.
Yeah, and they didn't know a word of English, I suppose.
No, no. My dad knew some, my mom knew none
Yeah,
whatsoever. Yeah.
but you know how tough it is even for now. Like you and I, we are in this era of technology, going
Hmm.
to a new place, going to a new community, that's social, going to a new social structure, learning the way of life and looking at faces that is so different from you, and hearing words of alien.
Yes.
That's why I always feel that people who have gone first, they are the heroes of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and tell us now that you go back to that part whereby you say that your dad crowdfunded.
Hmm.
Without the crowdfunding source
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
we can laugh about it now, but there must have been a lot of pain, and my heart goes out to them. I mean, we could talk about it now in a very diplomatic way. We crowdfund, we do a business, but I can't imagine that era of people who left.
Yeah.
Yeah, that era of people, who left, and then because they really wanted their children to be safe.
Yes.
No, kudos to the era of heroes.
Hmm.
And then your dad, what happened? What happened? Tell us the story. Tell us.
Well, it's amazing when I look back at it and see that how my dad and my uncles and the elders, right, how they were able to, they came to the U.S. and back home, back in Laos, it was about farming and raising your own crops and stuff. Here you get to the U.S., it's like land, right? So one, they were able to gather enough funds to go buy a piece of land and say, hey, if you put in whatever amount of dollars, you'll get this land, right? We want to all get our land together so that we call farm in the same area, not you in one area, me in one area, because it's easier for us to carpool, easier for us to lean on each other if we're all in one area. So that was one that they were able to do.
Wow.
Two was my dad and some of the other uncles were able to gather up enough funds and start their own small business. And I was like, then looking back, I was like, how did they even do that? Being in the US, not knowing the language and just being here, 6, 7 years, and here they are starting their own business. I'm like, wow. Just thinking back uh how much of an entrepreneurial mind my dad had. And I was just like amazed by looking back at it.
At which age were you? And how many people actually, your siblings? About 9 people?
So there were 9 of us, and I have nine. Oh, there's 9 of us total, but two of the older ones passed away from malnutrition. They died at a young age, and I never had the chance to meet them. But hey, I say there's 9 of us together because they were, kids of my mom and dad as well. I just never
Yeah.
had the chance to meet them. But
Yeah.
there were 7 that were here in the U.S.
Tell us, it must have been, you know, you were doing your own documentation, right?
Yes,
About your
yes.
dad's life in this 25th anniversary. Is there any chapter you would like to share? Anything that kind of sticks out?
Well, just I in coming from an Asian culture,
Yeah.
especially the Hmong culture, it's about clans, right? Having your groups, having clans. And my dad was the clan leader of our
Clan leader.
cousins and our relatives,
Oh
right? So
wow.
he was the one who held the group together. He was one of the ones who one of the key figures to say, "Hey, let's make those decisions," right? So when you have a big group, somebody has to make the decision, regardless if it's good or bad or how it turns out. And my dad was the one who
Yeah.
held our relatives and our group together. And once he passed, and that kind of like died with him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of that was lost when he
Yeah.
passed away.
Could you bring us to listeners and also yourself using this as one of your documentation? Could you share any story that you remember vividly about your dad? Give us some instance, some memories of him to bring him, to flash him out, to tell us about this hero of the generation.
Yeah,
What how is he like? How is he like? What kind of temperament does he have? How does he look like in your eyes? And what has he said to you or the family? What are these nuggets of real memories that have stuck in with you as a child?
he passed away when I was 8, so I have very little memory of him. Pockets of memory of him. But even now, when I meet cousins or relatives or aunts and uncles that knew of him or knew him then, would come and cry to me and still feel that pain of his loss, even up to this day, right? It's like people still come and share, like, oh my gosh, every time I see you, it brings back memories of your dad. And your dad was such a, I've heard stories of my dad being like a very even keel, very business-like person, very business-like approach to things. And it's just so amazing to see people still coming up to me or my siblings and say, "Oh, I remember when your dad was this and he did this for us."
You
He
tell
might,
us what were some of these words that your uncles and your dad said about your
yeah,
dad?
yeah, that he was a very humble person. That he would, regardless, he didn't just pick you out because you were smart, right? He knew that everybody played a role, and then he needed to gather everybody together, saying, "Okay, you're smart in this area. That's where you're gonna be. How about you? You're not as smart in that area, but you could do this. So we're gonna take you along, right?" He didn't leave anybody out. He was very inclusive and saying, "Oh, you're
Inclusive.
one of us," and not saying, "Oh, what can you offer me? You can't offer me anything. Okay, you're out of the group. you don't have anything that you can offer. You know, my dad was one to say, no, everybody plays a role in this. Everybody can be a part of this. Everybody can chip in somehow, some way. And, you know, that's what I take from my dad about being, you know, one, being fair, right? Just being fair and saying, you can play a role. Come on, let's go. So those are the types of stories that I hear people sharing me about my dad.
Okay, and because you were 8 years old and you see your dad, like, you know, he arrived here, I can kind of like imagine to crowd fund, right?
Yeah.
Or with your uncles to do something and to get a land, etc. Is there something that you remember at that time that he was doing something with that?
No, I don't remember any of that at all. I just hearing stories and looking back at him, like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
How did he even think about doing that? How you know how? So I missed out on that piece. You know, I was too young at that age,
Yeah.
and with me
Do
being
you
the middle
ever
child,
remember he spoke to you?
oh yeah, I've had stories.
Like
You know,
tell us two conversations that he did speak to you. Tell us two. Give us two.
my most vivid memory of my dad is, you know, we went grocery shopping, and here I was, I don't know, maybe like 5, right, sitting in the front seat, no seatbelt kind of thing, because it wasn't required then, and they didn't know. So here I was sitting in the front seat, not being strong enough to close the passenger door, and as my dad is taking a left turn, the door swings open, and I fall out. And my dad like ran over my foot, right? And I was like, what just happened? And my dad stops, runs around, checks on me, everything's okay, just kind of throws me back in the car and just goes on, right? I was like, that's my most vivid memory of my dad
Wow.
I can remember. Yeah.
Your foot being run over.
Yeah.
Do I have a second memory?
You know, and then the second most vivid memory is the day that he passed, right? I just
Tell us.
didn't know what was happening, the things that were happening. All I knew is that he was involved in a car accident, and he had ran over. Oh, he got hit. I was like, oh, as a kid, I can remember having my toy cars and be like, oh, here's my dad laying on the ground, and here's a car that ran him over, right? I still remember that, and that's a story that I heard. And then later on, I found out, no, that wasn't even the case, right? That wasn't what had really happened.
Would you mind sharing that a little bit to document, or you don't want? It's really up to you.
No, I don't mind sharing at all. You know, it's my dad. And so this goes back to the farm, right? So, you know, my dad and some of the uncles and cousins were, we had cows on the farm, and this was middle January. So middle January, Minneapolis is super cold and super snowy and icy.
Yeah.
But they still needed to go get hay from a place not too far from our farm to be able to get hay to feed the cows, right? And be like, oh, they still need to eat and feed. And so then they went to go get that. And as my dad and some of the uncles and relatives were getting the hay from the barn, they the truck that they used was backing up to the barn, but it was on a slope, right? It's on an incline. So without any traction, they couldn't go up slow. So my dad was the one behind the truck, like waving and giving direction and saying, oh, back up more. And then
I think we get the point.
Okay. Sure.
Really, because I think, because I also want this as a gift for you. And I think, you know, something that you could document for you know, I would like to share, because you have been generous in sharing. So I have to share with you about my dad.
Okay.
My dad passed on when I was about 7, 8, the same. But he actually passed on with liver cancer, because it was such a, and of course you wouldn't know what's the real cause of it. But you know, he was such a heavy drinker and a smoker, and you would think that that's the source of it, and that's what the doctors claim. I mean, you really can't tell, right, after many years of, you know. But I think I hear you. I have very little memory of my dad. That's why I really wanted you to document it, because it's so little. That's why it's worthwhile to document it. And I have very little memory of my dad. And I do, and because I really appreciate you sharing this, and I would like to share this with you in appreciation, my show of appreciation for you and for the viewers. People who have got their loved ones passed on, you're not alone. The only memory, I think there are two memories that stand out. Two,
Hmm.
like what I told you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very good with numbers. Like either one, two, three. That's all I know, and that's all I can count. I'm very good with
Yeah.
maths. It's like I just know one, two, three. So I remember this. Just a couple, a little bit of time before he passed off. We had to, we wanted to go to the temple. I'm a born again Christian now. But at that time, my family was still Buddhist. My sister still is. But it's fine with us because we're
Hmm.
in Singapore. We respect all kinds of faith.
Hmm.
So I remember a family going to the temple, and you are young, and of course you don't really kind of figure out what that kind of means. But when you look back, and now that you say it, and it kind of brings me back to my memory. Can you imagine that when people really call out to faith, um, I could feel that they were really, I don't know, I can't speak for sure, but I could imagine in a logical sense that they were praying for hope.
Hmm.
Right. They were praying for hope. I can remember that because he couldn't walk that far, and it was those times in Singapore where we still had the rickshaw. I was seated with him because I was the youngest and I was the smallest, and he could fit behind a rickshaw.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I have, and that was the closest memory, the physically closest, to be physically close to him. And that's the only memory about being physically close to him
Mm.
when I was young. All right. I also have a second memory that um, I remember him the day before he was going to the hospital.
Mm.
The day that before he passed off, because well, and of course the thing is that we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes I mean, it's just I'm a Christian. I read a lot of the Bible, but there's one word that sticks out. Sometimes um, uh, this phrase just sticks out. Sometimes the unexpected comes like a thief in the night. You don't know. I think in a logical sense, when you're grown up, when you're anticipating something, you can kind of think that, okay, this is coming. Meaning that he's not the person, right? He's not going to live forever. He's going to live in a very expected time frame. He will go, right? In our logical mind now,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but of course, at that time, I was young, I didn't know. And plus, sometimes, even though you know, when it comes, it really hits you,
Yeah.
right? So the day before he was admitted to the hospital, and then, of course, thereafter, he went home to the Lord. Uh, he wanted to have this fish curry,
Okay.
yeah, which the doctor said no. And of course, I remember my mom said, no, 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 no. But, he says that, like, I'm going to die anyway. Let me have it. And then we took the cab and we went there. And I was really, really young then, I think about 7 or 8. So that was the closest memory that I ever had. So I want to thank you for sharing. And the thing is that your sharing, I think gave me some of my, you know, brought me back
Mm.
some of my memories to me. And I think the viewers and the listeners, and know this energy that we're sending out. And can you imagine, Elliot? It's huge. We're talking
Yes.
about a life. We're talking about life.
Yes.
We're talking about they ever walked on this earth. And for me to talk about your dad, and let's give him a big round of applause. Come on, this is a
Yes.
hero.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, he
Yes.
is a hero. And the way you tell me is that the way I interpret his life, I don't know much about life. We don't know until we go up to the heaven to look down. But he's the real hero. And for him to come to the US and after 10 years, this happened. It's like the candle that burnt for all of you,
Mm-hmm.
the light that burned for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it even much more heroic and much more poignant and much more significant and much more worthwhile for all of you to remember him. So tell us about your mom. How did she hold up herself?
Yeah, it was a true struggle for her because this was sudden, and my dad's death was sudden and tragic and instant. It wasn't um slow and gradual where we were able to say our goodbyes and stuff and left my mom. My mom was still young, right? She had the opportunity to get remarried. She had the opportunity to continue on with her life, but I have a greater appreciation of it now and looking back at it. But she, decided not to move on and get married because she had heard stories of a stepfather, a stepdad coming into the picture and changing the dynamics of the family. So she didn't want
Wow.
to have that upon her 7 kids. So, looking back at it, it was later on when I asked, I was like, Mom, how come you never did decide? She told me those things, right? She's like, yeah, because
Yeah.
I didn't want
And
those to
she's such
happen.
an honorable Asian woman, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's give her a round of applause, Elliot.
And she is my hero because
Wow. Yeah. She's still
she
she's still around. You still live with her?
no, my mom has passed as well. She passed away
Oh,
like
okay.
8 years ago,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, from health complications. But she was my hero because
yeah.
here she
Tell us.
was. She probably had like a second grade equivalency reading level, and here she was raising 7 kids on her own, playing role of mother, role of father, and raising these kids of hers to be just say, hey, I want you to go get your education so that you could live a more prosperous
Wow.
life than I had. I want more for you. I want you to be able to just uh, be comfortable and be successful in whatever way that you uh, term that deem them to be, right? And she is my hero, and she's like the most influential person in my life. And I envy all of that she has put into her kids to make that sacrifice to put her kids on um, a pedestal, but growing up, I didn't appreciate that. I was like, oh my gosh, my mom doesn't know it. She has a secondary reading level. Here I am. I'm going to school. I am way smarter. I know way much more than her. But then not knowing that, oh, my mom has way more wisdom than I do, right? Because she's experienced
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
in her life.
Can you imagine the amount of grit?
Totally.
That
I mean,
amount
it's
of
like
grit.
totally right. Just to battle through that, and again, not knowing the
Wow.
language, not knowing the
Wow.
culture. Yes, totally.
Yeah.
I
I,
like
I
yes.
let's give all mothers a round of applause, especially yours.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's giving me a
Wow.
greater appreciation for moms, right? Here in the US, I always looked, I was like, why is Mother's Day so celebrated as compared to Father's Day? Father's Day is get celebrated too, but Mother's Day is like you go all out for Mother's Day. And now,
Yeah.
see,
Yeah.
I mean, having that and now having kids of my own as well, I'm like, oh, okay, there's a reason why
Yeah.
mothers are
Yeah,
so celebrated.
exactly. And she being widowed. I mean, my mom was widowed too, so I can kind of like feel for her and feel for where you come from. Like, she can you imagine a single mom living in that era with very little good education and not worldly at that time and raising kids on top of all of this compounded into one and then
Yeah.
making sure all of you have better lives and education.
Mm-hmm.
How can she plow through that amount of the mountainous amount of challenges? It's something that we can't imagine in these times, right?
No,
Do
yeah.
you know,
I'm
can you share how she is as a person to you? What are the adjectives you will talk to her, you will describe her, And tell us like two memories of her.
She was a very stubborn and very strict person, right? Growing up, I was like, why is my mom always on my
Tiger
back?
mom. She's the first generation of the tiger mom.
But looking back at it, I was like, oh my gosh, I see why, right? Because we grew up in poverty. We grew up in the projects. We didn't have money. Around us was drugs and gangs and all of this other stuff
Yeah.
that I could have gone down. It's,
Yeah, you could have
one or
gone
two
down.
other decisions. I would have went down that road, either locked up or dead or any of that. And just seeing why my mom was so hard on me was for that reason. Be like, no, she didn't want me to go down that road. She didn't want me to have that
Wow.
life. She wanted me
Such a hero.
to go towards education and hey, have a better life. Right. So, just looking back at that, I just have a great appreciation for that now. Like then I was like, no, why is my mom always on my back?
How did in your memory, how did she? I believe she must have been working maybe in the farm also, plus doing other stuff, and also like taking care of you guys. How did she actually manage that? Could you describe what are the memories you have of her juggling all this?
My mom didn't really work, so just more for crops to eat at home, right? So it was put upon my. I had two older siblings, an older sister and an older brother, who went out and got jobs and helped supported the family financially that way. So my mom didn't go out and get jobs. She was more of the homemaker, making sure that everything at home was
Wow.
held in place and held together. So the seven of us, we were spread out pretty evenly, and the older ones took it upon themselves and their responsibility of saying, "Oh, since Dad is not here, we have to go out and work and make some kind of income to help support the family."
Wow. Do you have like two memories of your mom? Either she was talking to you. What are the wise words that kind of like imprinted on you and have influenced you as you go?
Number one was, it was later on in my life, and I had a conversation with her, and share a little bit about what I talked about earlier. It was, sat down with my mom and said, "Mom, how come you never did take that chance to go remarry? Why didn't you? You were young, you were beautiful, you could have done that." She just told me, I didn't want to do that and bring somebody else into this family and break it up or have some kind of abuse going on. And I took that upon. So, oh my gosh, my mom is so thoughtful and so generous of making a self-sacrifice and saying, I'm not just seeking out my self needs, my personal needs. I have to look out for the bigger picture of my seven kids and make sure that they're put in an environment for them to succeed or for them to excel at whatever they do.
Salute. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Like, congrats to her for that. Yeah,
And
I
I
honor her for
also
that.
is there another memory of her besides that conversation you had with her? Is there any other memory that kind of sticks out?
Yeah, going back to.
Okay, I think we should pause a little bit. I want to share with you too. My mom passed on, like my mom has gone home to the Lord 5 years ago. So this is her fifth anniversary in October, and I published in memory of her. So it's actually available in Amazon. Okay, a bit of promoting my book, plugging my book on Amazon. No, but I don't do it for money. I don't expect to write anything for money. I think it was especially she having such a huge influence on you is because your years of growing up, your years of knowing and understanding the world, she was there. She was there when you start growing up, as opposed to you and your dad, because you were too young, you were like a toddler. So there's very little memory of you and very little conscious impact that your dad have on you that you could remember consciously. I suppose unconsciously it must have got a great impact. I mean, your dad and your mom are similar. Your dad, he's such a leader, right? I mean, he's like the one that held on to the whole clan, and he was the one who says that you do this, you do this, you do this, and he was the all-inclusive person. And your mom was the one, the hero that held the family together. Being a woman at those times, I can't imagine, and you're right, and you being emotional about this, I can exactly know where you come from because it could be emotional for me, even as I speak about my mom and such. And I can't even read my book that I published.
Okay.
I couldn't even edit it. It was like, okay, I wrote it in my WhatsApp with
Yeah.
all the grammatical errors. I call it the new millennium language. It get published. So I couldn't even edit. I couldn't even read it. And even now I've got like 20 books right on my table. I can't even flip because
Mm,
it as deep as that. I mean, if we have that respect and that appreciation of their life,
yes.
it's gonna be with you forever because it's so immense. The immensity of that weight of their generosity of giving, it's just beyond words. It's just beyond words. It's just beyond saying thank you, right? It's
Yes.
just really beyond like this sharing that we have. It doesn't give justice at all to what they've done. And I feel for you, and I feel for your memory about your parents. And I think a lot of us have sometimes. I'm not sure if you struggle with that, Elliot. I just want to ask you, because you love her and she's like your hero and she's got such a huge influence and impact on your life. And she's the one that helped everyone together. And you
Hmm.
can get to appreciate her effort more as you grow older. Like the amount of pain and grit she must have gone through, right? Being alone,
Yes.
unspoken, the kind of unspoken um, grit,
Yeah.
just grinding through every day. I want to ask you, um, is there something about you that you felt that you took on your mom and your dad's influences consciously or unconsciously now that you're looking back, that they kind of like exist in you?
Yeah, a little bit from both, right? I'm one to always be fair, and I'm one to always be inclusive, and I want to make sure everybody has a voice and everybody's heard and everybody's seen. And that was something that I took from my dad, and not knowing, right? I don't have many memories of my dad, but just hearing from other people, it's like, oh, your dad did that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do that too, but I don't do that consciously saying, oh, I'm going to do it because my dad did it. I just do it because that's what I have in me, and I've been inclusive and fair and say, hey, I want you to be part of this. I want you to be part of this. Let's get together. Let's do this together. Let's put our minds together. And then going back to what you asked earlier about sharing a story about my mom is, my mom is always one to say, hey, like I mentioned earlier, she's the glue of the family, and she's like, my dream one day is to have all my kids living together under one roof. And I was like, Mom, that's not possible because we're each gonna have their own families, their spouses. It's not gonna work. She's like, okay, so what's gonna happen is we'll have a live under one roof, and you each will have your own wing, right? So you live in the West
Wow,
Wing,
it's a
South Wing. It's
huge
like we're
home.
all gonna, yeah. And
That's
it's
a Kim
like,
Kardashian home.
so that was her like dream because she wanted all her kids
Yeah.
to be together in one place under one roof,
Wow.
and that was the way she knew it to work. And then going back to the day before she passed, right? It was like all of us were under one roof, and she had that one moment that was happy, and it was amazing because she was out dancing. She doesn't dance. She doesn't go on the dance floor. We were at a wedding. She was on the dance floor. She was out enjoying life, and I was like, wow, I didn't think that like it would take so much. It would be like pulling teeth to get her just on the dance floor to move, but she was dancing and moving, and I was so in all of that. But then not knowing like the following day was, that's the day that she passed, and I was like, oh, she had her one moment of her kids being under one roof enjoying life, and that was she knew it was her time, and that was her one moment. And then she went the following day. She
Mm.
passed the following day.
In it's almost like, if I were to see it figuratively, that was the final moment, like, before the lights are out.
Hmm.
She had the final of she's gone through the bucket list, like I've done this.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is the final one. I think I can know there's one saying that we have in Singapore, but in dialect, but it really means that um, you will live without regret. So she felt that,
Hmm.
hey, I've got no regrets. It's time
Correct.
for me to go, and I'm happy that I've discharged all my responsibilities and my roles. I am. I think she's almost like saying that I can give myself the pat on the back, and I can
Hmm.
kind of relieve myself from this responsibility. I just need a break. So,
Yes.
Elliot, you don't have to be sad, and I can see that in your eyes, and I know that there are certain moments you are still very emotional about that, and I can feel it, and I can feel for you.
Thank you.
I think she's in a she I'm sure she's in a much better place. I want to ask, do you have any dreams of your dad or your mom after um they have left?
Maybe like once or twice, but it's not as vivid. Right? It just come and goes, and then I don't have that deep memory of, oh my gosh, my dream of this and that.
Yeah.
And my siblings have shared, like, they've had dreams and they've had experiences of my
Mm,
parents coming back to their dreams, but for me, I haven't had many of those.
yeah. I think it just goes to show that, Elliot, you're gonna be okay.
It wasn't always that easy, right? Right after my mom died, it's like it
Yeah.
was. I had very
Mm.
dark days, right? But
Tell
now
us,
I've
tell us,
I've come to
tell us.
appreciate,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I struggled, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just
Tell
felt
us,
like
how does a man go through grief the unspoken way? Tell us.
I didn't want to talk to anybody. I kept it in, and I kept everything bottled in, and I realized, oh my gosh, this isn't working for me because
Yeah,
I have no one to talk to. So I
yeah,
went and I saw a counselor, right? I went to seek therapy, and I'm not ashamed to say that, right? Because I needed to talk to someone,
yeah.
and having that bereavement talk with a therapist was helped me to where I am now. Be like, oh yes, I appreciate the stuff that she did. I honor my mom for what she did. Yes, she has passed, and I am sad. But I'm not gonna let that hold me down, because here I am. I need to honor my mom and dad. I need to keep that legacy going. I need to have that momentum and keep it moving forward, because then I want to pass that upon to my kids and pass that upon to my grandkids and keep that momentum
I want to
going.
ask a very question that that I want to ask for a man, um, uh, because I can sense that it still kind of hurt you when you think through, because we're human, right? We're still in this
Hmm.
flesh and blood. We're still in this physical world. Um, does it become kind of easier as time goes by, or that when you think about that, it still hits you like before?
You're talking about like my mom's passing?
Whatever memories, yeah, about your
Oh,
mom, your
okay.
dad, yeah,
Yeah, well, it's hard to talk about as a
yeah,
man, right? Because
okay,
it's unwritten rule that, oh, men can't be sensitive or vulnerable
yeah,
or soft, right? But it's like
yes,
men
that
have
is so
emotions,
wrong.
men have feelings that they need
Of
to let out as
course,
well, right? So, and I want to role model that for my
yeah,
kids,
yeah,
and I have
yeah,
a son, he's 12, and I want to, and he's like, Dad. And I keep reminding him, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay
yeah,
if you cry. It's okay
yeah,
to show that type of emotion. When you cry, that just means that you care, right? You care
yeah,
about whatever. There's loss or happy times, even when you cry when it's happy, right? So it's like, it's okay to cry, and it's
yeah,
okay to show those types of
yeah.
emotions.
Yeah, and because I want you to know, I want you to also share with us what you have learned. Maybe share with us like two things that you have done. Of course, one thing you talked about the bereavement talk. I want to know how does a man come back from difficult um, situation like that. Bereavement. How long did it take? Because you told me you went for talks, and how long did you take? Can you detail us this journey, like in phase one, phase two, or phase three? Is there something like that that you can actually track, like you're getting better, etc.? And what's besides the bereavement talk? Is there any concrete things that you've done to actually help yourself?
Phase one was just shock, right? Still being in shock of like
Yeah,
my mom passing away and not
yeah,
knowing how that will
yeah.
affect me and my siblings, right? Because I like again, right?
Because
She was a
there wasn't any hint before
no,
that.
yeah. Hmm.
Mm,
And then phase two, I guess, would be the sadness part and the dark days. I was in that like
how
a
long was
dark
it? Yeah.
black hole, probably like 3 months. Like it was very dark. Even my wife couldn't help me get out of it because I didn't
Describe
want to talk
about
to
this
her.
dark place. Describe.
It's like I was in a hole, in a deep dark hole, and I couldn't climb my way out, couldn't
In
find
your
my way
mind.
out. Yeah, like I
How did
just
you exist? How did you exist?
like I didn't exist, right? Like I was just on this earth with nothing going on. Like I was just sleepwalking my way through life, and just kind of whatever happens happens, right? The randomness by chance, just whatever happened. I just okay, whatever, and just was fine with it, regardless if it was positive, negative, good, bad. Just like let things be. And then following that was I started talking about it more and expressing, saying, like my friends, my close friends say, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in this deep dark hole and I don't know
They could
how to
see
get out
that
of it."
in you. They could see that in you.
Yeah, they could see that, and I started expressing that, and then I started getting, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. Oh, if you need anything, let us know." And then I started
Yeah,
getting that kind
yeah,
of encouragement from family and
yeah,
friends,
yeah.
and then
And
that's when
what
I
made
start.
you reach out to a therapist?
From I didn't want to because I was shameful of it, right? It's like I don't want to
Yeah,
talk about my feelings,
yeah,
and with the urging of my wife and just saying, "Hey, just go try it, right?
yeah. Okay.
Just do it, and see what happens." And then with the first time, I was like, "Okay, this isn't too bad." When the second time, I was like, "Oh, this is getting better." The third and fourth time, like, "Oh, I'm starting to see that the blessings in this, the appreciation that I have, for my mom.
Yeah,
Of course, the passing is still sad, and I still struggle with that. But it's like, okay, how can I honor her moving forward? How can I make sure that my mom and dad's legacy lives on? Right. So that's what continues me. That's what keeps me going and moving forward.
So this curve about phase one, phase two, the shock, then the pain, the dark place, and then the next phase was the therapy. At which point in time you felt that you were out of that dark place after the therapy was completed? At what point that you
Well,
felt like I'm okay?
yeah, even at the end of the therapy, I started seeing that more, but I didn't see that totally. So maybe like a month or two after the therapy, and then I started gaining that momentum, and building upon, oh, how can I honor them, right? And I started asking myself those types of questions, and how can I keep this moving? So
Yeah,
it was a good 6-7 months before, after my mom's passing me, before any of this started picking up traction and have some kind of movement.
yeah. And how did you uh kind of like, okay, I will really just, how did you like go back to that normalcy? Uh, so it was like 7 months after, you couldn't just like immediately gone back to normalcy, like laugh with your friends, like it's hard to
Hmm.
get that back, right? I mean, it's such a big part of you that just kind of like gone like buried together. A big part of you is being torn out. And I know how I could feel it. A big part of you is being torn.
Yeah.
The heart is broken. And we're really talking about the brokenness inside.
Hmm.
So at what point in time you felt that, hey, I can look back at my career, I'm gonna do this with my life, and that kind of like take precedence again instead of like grieving over your family. There's a lot of things in play now, right?
Yes. One big thing that helped was, my siblings and I, we had a family meeting and saying, "Hey," and then showing that appreciation. What did you honor about mom? What did you appreciate about mom?
I
Right. And having that,
see.
and then also having a conversation about the piece of, hey, mom was the one who held this family together. We could go either one or two ways, right? The family's going to break apart. Everybody does their own thing, or we could stick together and continue this togetherness of being a family still. And we all decided, hey, let's stay together, let's stick together, let's still have these moments, because this is what mom would have done when she was here, right? She would have held the family together. she would have said, oh, we're having a family gathering, holidays, especially this year, right? A little harder with the pandemic, but having those family gatherings and keeping that still going instead of, oh, mama's the glue, mama's the rock. She's now longer here. Now everybody just goes their own way. So we made that conscious decision and with that intention of let's stay together. Let's have keep these family gatherings going.
So that was a significant event of
Very much so.
intervention. Tell us,
Yes.
how did this happen? Someone must have wanted to call for this meeting, this very important conference.
I would like to take credit for it, but I don't know if I can. Right? I don't know how that happened. I don't recall one particular person saying, hey, let's have this gathering, right? But I just remember us getting together and saying, if this is what we want to do, this is what we want to continue, then we must keep this together and keep this moving, or else we will go our separate ways and do our own things and then have our own little family gatherings only without the cousins and the siblings together.
Wow. I mean, I just want to salute you, but I think we should salute your dad and your mom.
Yes.
And they are the heroes. Let's salute them.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to say that my words sound superficial, and I think whatever words that we use, we can't go into the life of people that have passed before us, who have walked the road. Can you imagine? They paved the way, they opened the door, and they really paved that, and they kind of cut through the jungle and let you walk.
Yes.
I can't imagine that. Your story kind of make me, before my tears drop, I think I'm gonna say goodbye to you. But I really want to thank you so much, Elliot. I'm so emotional about this. It's like, whew, whew. Elliot, I would like you to say something for the next 30 seconds. You are 2 days or 3 days away from 2020. What's your concluding message for the next 30 seconds about your story that you've told us, and also moving forward for your life of your family? Yeah, tell us.
Vicky, just what you shared about there, right? It's about attaching yourself to people who have paved the way, right? Because you want that smooth road.
Yeah.
Do you want to go on your own and
Wow.
find a searches on your own and go through rough terrain? Or do you want to attach yourself to people who've done it before and have that smooth pave for you and say, hey, come and join me, because this is going to be a smooth road, less bumpy. There might still be bumps, but be less bumpy for you, right? And that's why I do what I do as a coach right now. So hey, let's get there faster. I could show you ways to get there faster. Let's get there faster, because let's cut out that time, because we don't know how much time we have on this earth, right? And let's cut out that time and so that you could get to whatever success means for you, whatever the happiness or joy means for you, right? Let's find those habits to get there.
Yeah, and you're a high performance coach, right? Tell us what do you do? What does a high performance coach do, and what is the result you're trying to get the people to get to?
Yeah, as a high performance coach, people are like, oh my gosh, what is a high performance coach? I was like, high performance coach is someone who's going to help guide you to get to those high levels of performance and stay there over the long term, right? It's not overnight sustain, right? It's not overnight success. It's like, oh, because we hear stories about people who are crushing it their careers and making millions of dollars, but working 80-hour work weeks and not having healthy relationships.
Yeah, right? And if it's not sustainable, you can just go down. If you don't hold it there.
Correct, right? So high performance is all about what are those habits that you could put in place. We already have it. We already know it. But what are those habits that you could put in place so that you can continue this over the long term? Right? So I just enjoy working with people, and when it's very simple. It's not complex. I don't work on oh, you need to do this and that and this and that. No, it's very simple. And when people get that thought or that habit, and oh my gosh, I knew that, but I just didn't know to do that. Right. And one story I want to share is I worked with a client and she wanted to read more than it because she enjoyed reading, but she's like, I don't have time. I was like, how did you remember to come on this call with me today? Oh, it was on my calendar. I was like, okay, do you think reading can be something that you can put in your calendar? Oh yes, I didn't know that. Like, so she started calendaring in reading time, and she did that, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what a game changer!" I didn't know I had that time, but once I put it on my schedule, I have the time now. I
Yeah.
said yes,
Wow.
right? We're all given
Small
24
things
hours a day. Yeah, that's something that's
make that
simple, right?
change. Yeah.
Yes, right.
That means we can achieve high performance if we do
Oh,
make
totally.
certain changes, yeah. Thank you, Elliot. I want to um, hope to check in with you and your family 2021, and then give me the links of your project or your business below, so that people who needs high performance, I think we all need this after during this prolonged lockdown. I think there's no performance, all of us.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I just want to wish everyone a prosperous 2021, right? And we've all gone through this together, and this pandemic is something that we've all gone through. And I just want to wish everyone a well and safe and healthy 2021, and very prosperous 2021 as we move on to this next year.
I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You have shared so generously the story of your family, even in that little nuggets that we feel that we don't give them the right the right proper respect, but with very little nuggets that you have shared with us, which holds so much immense life in it. I just want to thank you. I believe people who are listening in, they would know what to pick up from what you've said. I picked up something from what you've said. I think staying together, families together, and I've learned so much from you. I have, and I'm not going to say more because it's going to,
Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you, and I want to tell you that it's a good thing what you have done today for us. It is a good thing.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. I honor you for your time. I honor you for allowing me to come on your platform to share my story and share with your audience about, that yes, you can be who you are, and just continue to show up as your truest self and your best self, and just continue with that. And that's good enough.
Thank you so much, Elliot. I will check in with you, and I will invite you as my guest in my private Facebook, where all my guests are connected. Thank you so much, Elliot. We will continue our conversation in the next episode in 2021. Thank you, and send my warmest regards to your wife and your children, and all the wonderful safety, protection, and love from this part of the world.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. I appreciate it.